All right, today we're diving into a pretty controversial book called The Single Mother Trap. Now, this book lays out a really specific and, a hotly debated take on modern dating. Our goal here is to just break down its main arguments for you, piece by piece. So let's jump right in. Okay, so the book kicks things off with a scene that I'm sure is super familiar to a lot of you. Picture this, you're just scrolling through a dating app, swiping away, and then bam, you land on a profile, someone who really catches your eye. Great smile, bio seems cool, you get that little flicker of excitement, right? That feeling of, this could be something. And just as your thumb is heading for that like or swipe right button, you see it. Maybe it's a kid in one of the photos or just a quick mention in her bio, mom to 2 amazing kids. And the author's whole point is that for a lot of men, that one little detail changes the entire equation. What was a simple, easy yes a second ago suddenly feels a whole lot more complicated. So why the hesitation? What's going on in that moment? That's really the core question the book tries to unpack. And the argument it makes isn't that guys are just heartless or don't like kids, not at all. It's that there's this almost instant subconscious calculation that kicks in, a calculation about what this relationship would actually look like in reality. Okay, so the first big idea the book throws out there is what it calls the structural reality. And what that really means is this. You're not just starting a relationship from scratch with one person. No, you're essentially walking into a system that's already up and running. And the author draws a really stark contrast here. Think about it. When you date a woman with no kids, the relationship itself can be the main event. You can build your schedules around each other. But with a single mom, you're stepping into a pre-existing hierarchy. Her kids are priority number 1. And the book is quick to say, hey, that's exactly how it should be. But the consequence is that the new relationship, it has to squeeze into whatever time, energy, and attention is left on the table. Yeah, and this quote from the book really nails the practical side of that hierarchy. The whole argument is that the new partner, well, you get the leftovers, whatever's left in the tank after all the demands of being a parent have been met for the day. All right, so moving on from the practical stuff, the book dives into the next layer of complexity. It calls this the inherited dynamic. And this is where we get past just scheduling and logistics and into something a little messier. The ghost of the relationship that came before. So the argument here is that the kid's father is basically a permanent fixture. He's this ghost that's always kind of haunting the new relationship. It doesn't even matter if he's an active co-parent or completely absent. Either way, his presence or the story of his absence is always there. And of course, the children themselves are this constant living reminder of a history, of a bond that you had absolutely nothing to do with. And all of this leads to what is maybe the most important concept in the whole book, responsibility without authority. You've got it right there. The idea is that the new guy is often expected to act like a parent, to contribute his time, his money, his emotional energy, but at the end of the day, he has zero real authority. He doesn't get the final say on rules, on discipline, on the big decisions. Why? Because he's not the dad. And according to the author, this puts a man in a whole series of no-win situations. It's like, okay, you try to step up and be a parental figure? Whoa, back off, you're overstepping your bounds. So you decide to stay hands-off? Well, now you're uninvested and you don't care. The book frames it as this impossible tightrope walk where no matter what you do, you're probably going to get it wrong. And of course, we have to talk about the money. The book points out that there's often this unspoken pressure for the new guy to start contributing financially. And this can create a really tricky situation where a man starts to feel like he's paying for a family he didn't create, funding someone else's past decisions. And if he dares to bring it up or question it, well, then he just looks like the selfish bad guy. So with all that in mind, the book then shifts gears into what it calls a dating market analysis. The whole idea here is to strip away all the emotion and look at the choice from a purely logical, almost cold perspective. So the author lays out this really simple comparison. Let's say a guy has 2 options, 2 women he's equally attracted to. Option A, she's a blank slate. The relationship can be whatever they build it to be. Option B, she comes with a packed schedule, divided attention, an ex in the picture, and a whole set of obligations from day one. The book's question is just a logistical one. If you have a choice, why would you knowingly and willingly choose the path with more obstacles? And this quote right here, this is pretty much the central thesis of the whole book. It's a blunt, unemotional assessment of the dating market. The argument is simple. When people have options, they tend to choose the simpler one, the path of least resistance. And single motherhood, by its very nature, is just not that path. Then there's another interesting point the book raises, which it calls mismatched standards. This is the idea that a single mom might now be looking for a really stable, responsible, provider-type guy. Qualities she might not have been looking for in the guy she actually had kids with. And the author argues this can breed some serious resentment, you know? The new guy can end up feeling like he's being held to a higher standard, almost like he's being hired to clean up a mess he didn't make. So, where does this all leave us? What's the final takeaway? Well, the book's final section actually isn't just a blanket warning saying, don't ever date a single mother. That's not the point. Instead, the author frames the goal as promoting what they call informed consent, basically making sure you go into the situation with your eyes wide open.
And to that end, the book offers some pretty direct advice for any guy who's considering it. It's really a call for being radically honest with yourself and taking a very practical approach. First, understand why you're doing it. Do your due diligence on her past. You have to be realistic and accept that you will never be number one. And finally, you have to protect yourself both legally and financially.
And this right here, this finally defines what the book means by the trap. So according to the author, the trap isn't the woman. It's not her kids. The trap is the cultural pressure, the expectation for a good man to just smile, nod, and accept this really complicated situation without asking any hard questions, only to find out what the real costs and risks are when he's already in way too deep. And the whole thing wraps up with this final, really provocative thought. The ultimate argument of the book is that awareness is your only defense. If you know all the potential pitfalls and you still decide to move forward, well, that's not a trap. That's a conscious choice. The real danger, the author says, is stumbling into it completely blind, without ever seeing the full picture.